Hmm. 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 I want my tits to show a bit. I ain't been hitting the gym to hide these babies. They're still coming in.
Anywho, howdy folks. My name is Justin Pascal. I'm a composer and pianist. So I've been doing some thinking about how I want to develop my career as a composer, but not just that, but how do I want, I guess, like, what do I want my legacy and my impact to be as a human here on Earth? And I've kind of looked in the past and looked at how things are currently being done with other composers and musicians. And I've been looking a lot at people who really inspire me and people whose impact I've really aspired towards. So these people are people like Lady Gaga, Barbara Hannigan. Fuck, I am totally blanking on this other lady. Can you tell there's a trend? I've spent a lot of time thinking about composers today and what is the impact that they have, but not just composers, musicians, particular pop musicians who have a very large reach. What is the impact that they have on people, and how do they achieve that? Well, it's not just the music. When you think about Lady Gaga, I mean, I grew up on Lady Gaga. I mean, like, I was still finding my sexuality, still wasn't super sure if it was like kosher or not kosher. I mean, I got bullied for it in middle school, even though I didn't know I was gay, but very clearly gay. But with like Lady Gaga's music, it was more than just bopping songs. There was a message behind it, and there was a message that Lady Gaga was very vocal about, which is that it's okay to be gay, and it's not okay to be, not chill towards gay people. And that spoke to me, and that added more value to her music. And so whenever I listened to her music, I wasn't just experiencing the sounds and all of that. I was experiencing this really positive message. And that message was conveyed because she was very outspoken about her beliefs and her experiences and who she supports. And so that's a big reason why I want to do this, to get in front of a camera, address all of you wonderful humans out there, and to kind of share my own experience, not to talk about myself, because I friggin' hate talking about myself. Honestly, I get scared that I come off as like full of myself, and I don't. That's not an image I want or I feel is accurate to who I am. So honestly, this is really just to kind of share things about myself to relate with you all. If you all relate to this, please reach out to me, comment. I don't care how the fuck you get in touch with me. If you want to connect, if you do relate, please let me know. I'm super eager to hear all of your stories. And I think that's the big thing. One of the big things about life that I really love is just getting to listen to other people's experiences. It's something very special and something that really has brought in a lot of joy and a lot of peace into my life, especially during the hard times, when I'm like, oh my God, this fucking sucks. I'm in pain and agony. And then I, talk to someone who had it like 10 million times worse than I did. And it kind of puts me in my place in a very loving way. But just that human element of connection that music does foster, but just getting in front of a camera and like talking about my life story, my music can't really convey that. I think there is an aspect though with a lot of my music where, and I think this is with a lot of composers and all other creative artists out there, where creativity and their art kind of inherently mirrors what's going on in their life, their values, what's important to them, and certain relations. Think about punk music. Punk music was a reaction against society and against normalcy. And, you could hear that in the music and the aesthetic and how people held themselves and what people did, truancy and all of that in Britain. There's more to music than just the sound. And I really do want to add to that, add a bit more of the human element. And I think, I can listen back to my music and be like, oh, this is when I was like super depressed. Oh, this is when I was super gay. Oh, this is when I was like super fuck you to the man. a lot of these composers, we're learning about them after they die. And I look at a lot of composers I really admire today. And do I know, much about their personal lives? No. Now, of course, there's privacy. And of course, there's an element of like how open people are. And one of the big parts of my life is actually spent 4 years locked up in psychiatric treatment facilities against my will. And in those 4 years, I literally had no choice but to be open about my experience and to share my story. So I've gotten pretty comfortable with it. A lot of our greatest composers today, we know their music and we enjoy their music, but there's such an intense focus on the music that unless you know them personally, there is this bit of a disconnect. I wouldn't, no, not necessarily disconnect. Disconnect is the wrong word. There's a certain amount of distance. And for me, I want to close that distance. Welcome to the Justin Pascal life story, part 1. Première part. Oui, on est deux fromage. Okay. I fucking love Lipton green tea. That shit is so good, but my God, fucking 29 grams of sugar. Honey, I'm gonna get diabetes. My Lola has diabetes. I inherited so much from the Filipino side of the family, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to inherit the baldness, the receding hairline. I'm waiting to inherit the diabetes. But anywho, here we go. I was born on July 17th, 1993, at Edwards Hospital, Naperville. I came out looking really frickin' Asian. Cut to picture of me when I was born. Oh my God, no way, that was you. Oh, you look so Asian. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, came out looking like that. I'm a quarter Filipino. My mom is Hapa. Hapa is Tagalog for half Filipino and then half something else. Her brother, my uncle, when I looked at pictures of them when they were kids, like they all look super freaking Asian when they were younger. But then as they got older, they started looking less and less Asian. And the same definitely went for me. Growing up, like as a child, I was super happy. I mean, very smiley, very like, oh my God, the world is amazing. And I mean, I still do have that part in me to this day. I think it's been important to hold on to that, especially through the dark times I've had. So born in Edwards Hospital, Naperville, July 17th, 1993. I was actually born half deaf. So my pediatrician described it perfectly. He said that my hearing was that of, imagine this. You are underwater and you hear people talking on the surface. So basically that. So the lisp I have today, I got it back then just because it wasn't up until age 6 that I could fully hear. Age 5, my parents are like, something is off with him. They thought I was autistic for a bit. I mean, rightfully so, because I was half deaf. Then they took me to the pediatrician one day and they're like, he's not autistic, he's just half deaf. And so from that moment, they started I got 12 sets of ear tubes, started puncturing my ears, literally the worst pain of my entire goddamn fucking life. It was agonizing. And then so because of the pressure differential, it pushes out the fluid from the ears, from behind the eardrum to outside the eardrum. I still have some scars on my eardrums to this day, which I think is pretty badass, but I mean. And so age 6 is when I kind of was able to fully hear finally. And it was really overwhelming at first. There are times when I would just kind of retreat into a corner or go somewhere in a playground where it's there's no one else, just to kind of relax myself. But another thing that kind of happened around within this time frame was that I started to see shapes and colors when I heard sounds. So today I know this to be synesthesia. I've talked to some, professionals about this, and we've kind of ping-ponged, like, why, how did this happen? How did this develop? I'm going to have to explain this. So, okay, here we go, folks. Synesthesia is an overabundance of neural connectivity in the brain. So, for example, when I say red apple, you might picture a red apple if you do have the mind's eye and you are able to picture things. That in itself, what happened just now in your brain when I said red apple, I created a sound and you heard the sound and you interpreted the sound, and the sound created this image, a very specific image in your brain. So that's the auditory cortex taking in the sound, going into the visual cortex to create that image in your head. So synesthesia is an overabundance of neural connectivity between two sensory cortexes. So there's just so much neural pathways and neural connection between these two parts of the brain that it just happens instantly. And so for me with my synesthesia, it is 24/7. There is no off button. Oftentimes, like, I'll tell people and they'd be like, oh my God, it must be so amazing. And it is. But at the same time, it can be overwhelming at times. And honestly, I mean, I've had a very long history of sleep problems. And one of the issues why is because I need complete silence when I sleep. Otherwise, like these like shapes and colors will kind of keep me up. The theory as to why I do have the synesthesia is in being born half deaf, my brain compensated for that by kind of overwiring from the auditory cortex to the visual cortex, just to kind of make some sense out of what was happening. And we see this with other people born with different kinds of disabilities, people who are born blind, people who are born deaf. We see that their brain kind of rewires itself and kind of overwires to kind of compensate for that. The thought of why I have synesthesia is kind of the same principle there. So yeah, I thought it was normal. And then I remember in elementary school, I knew it wasn't normal when it was music class, and my teacher, Mrs. Roble, she was playing this thing at the piano. And I know it's a C major chord because I saw a yellow square. And I turned behind me and I turned to my friend Matt. I'm like, hey, do you see the yellow square? And he looked at me like, what? So that was kind of the first moment when I was like, oh, okay, this is different. So after that, I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm already kind of weird and hyperactive enough as it is, so I'm just going to kind of keep this to myself. Things were just really bright and happy, and I would spend a lot of time wandering and kind of going out on my own. And I think from what I've been told of like family, friends, I was always in a world of my own. And I do attribute that to some of the deafness, or the half deafness. But just I loved everything, and I was just so amazed and just curious and fascinated by everything. And I still do have that as well to this day. But I was just like, what's this? What's this? Oh my God. What? Like, what is citrus? Okay. White man over here getting excited about citrus. I mean, who doesn't? White people, we love citrus. It's true. Am I right, white people? How dare you? White people hate citrus. And, I start like a race war, race war within the white race where it's like people who like citrus and people who don't like citrus. And, we just like, cultural genocide each other. That'd be so much fun. Okay. So up until age 5, I had 2 siblings. I have an older brother, older sister, and I have a younger brother. So I was the youngest until I turned 5. And then at 5 years old, my little brother was born. Early years of my life were, pretty normal. I was very shy though. I think the least normal thing was just that my development was really slow. in elementary school, I got put into resource ed. Part of learning how to speak a language and that process of learning that as a child is being able to hear. Like, if here I am clearly enunciating to you, but if you hear, that's how you're going to talk. And then you're going to talk that way, and people are going to be like, what? So I was a mumbler. And that was the big thing that they had to kind of like fix, was the mumbling. So bit of a delayed development. Also had ADHD as a kid. It was called ADD back then. My siblings and I, we have a lot of great memories together growing up. We spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of things and just like activities within the house, outside the house. And we stuck together. As I started getting closer to 13 years old, that's when I started to notice that the degree to which I was different. And, I started to, figure out, oh, I'm in resource ed. Like I'm with the kids who are autistic. And actually on that, my very first friends, like they were autistic, and I still miss him to this day, but Connor, my very first friend, he had Angelman syndrome, and he always had the smile on his face, and God, am I gonna cry? I might cry. I miss him. Yeah. But he fuck. Yeah, no, I really miss him. He would always be smiling, but one of the reasons why I got along so well with him was that I was half deaf and he was nonverbal. He only spoke by like and just moaning and utterances and all of that. And so for him, he had really, really strong nonverbal communication. And he only could communicate through nonverbals, which is my fucking, that's my jam. Fucking nonverbals, that's my fucking jam. And because, I couldn't read, I couldn't understand what people are saying. So the next thing I could do was just to like read people's body language to get a sense of, what they're trying to communicate. So Connor was my best friend because of that, and just because of how sweet he was and always smiling. And I just remember there would be so many times when we'd be playing on the playground, I'd be chasing him, and he found just like the most insatiable, overflowing joy in anything. And for me, that's something I have aspired to since then. I remember we were playing and I was chasing him, and then he goes up to this tree and he puts his ear on it. And then, I was just like, sure, I'll do this. And he starts smacking the tree. And I started doing that too. And he just started like laughing hysterically. Yeah, and I miss him. But that's the thing, is like, I don't know what happened to him. I left elementary school and he didn't go to the next school with me. But Connor, I hope you're doing well. I miss you. But anywho. So yeah, one of my earliest friends, but then as I got kind of closer to my teenage years, 13, I started, becoming a bit more socially aware, started to kind of get a better sense of like, social hierarchy. Here are the cool kids, here are the not cool kids. And for me, even though I kind of like knew it was there, like at first I didn't super care because I was like, again, kind of in my own little world. And for me, with my experience with Connor, it was just Connor's Connor. Like, it doesn't fucking matter if he's like popular or fucking rich, or if his dad works at like, fucking Nintendo. Some of you will know where that's from. My dad works at Nintendo. Oh my god, wow, what a great story. I wonder what the next part's gonna be like. Well, good news for you. Next part's right here. Check it out. All that good stuff, and I will see y'all next time.